Okay. Hello, it's Juho Vepsäläinen here, and it's time for the last session of the conference. So we will focus on the topic of the future of work, and I have three speakers here. Maybe Mika, maybe you can tell something about yourself and your topic.
Sure. Hi all. I'm Mika Schafroth. I'm nowadays an engineering team lead at Relic Solutions. I have mainly front-end background as a front-end developer and have now been working with React for about a year. And I will be talking about how to actually enter a React project or how to start working with React from a hiring manager's point of view. So if you don't have React on your CV, what it takes and how you actually can score a position.
All right, and Elisa, maybe you can tell a couple of words about yourself and your topic.
Absolutely. Hi to Juhis as well. He was waving at us. So my name is Elisa Heikura and I work as developer of people, which means that I teach soft skills to technical experts. So personally, I have nothing to do with React, but I do have a lot to do with people who work with React. So that's my tie to the conference. And my topic is the future of work is enjoyable. So I hope that I can end the conference with a positive and happy note. I know it's been a long week, so I hope to give you something nice to think about when you go to enjoy your weekend.
All right, and Saku.
Hello, my name is Saku Tihveräinen. I've been working in the field of recruitment for the past 10 years. And also alongside working on a PhD on the topic of how people choose jobs, and yes, I'll be having a look on the future of software jobs in Finland in a moment's time.
All right,
glad to be here.
Yes, thanks for joining. As I mentioned, it's the last session, and we will finish the conference, and we finish the conference with Finnish speakers as well. So it's 4 Finnish, 3 speakers and host from Finland. And if you have any questions at YouTube or Twitch, if anybody is following through Twitch, then send us your questions. And I think we can respond really well if you have anything related to the Finnish market or how to get a developer job in Finland or so on. So I think we can move to the first part by Saku. So maybe you can get ready, and then and it's not actually going to be a live demonstration, but something else. But you will see. So you can share your screen, and then we go with it.
Sounds good. Many thanks. Okay, just to double check. You are seeing what I'm seeing, i.e. development in future Finland? I believe that's a yes. So briefly, I introduced myself already. Just joined the company called Marbles, and really what it does, it's another recruitment agency in essence. So all sorts of different recruitments being done. Happy to help, if you need any help. Over the next 15 minutes, I'm having a look on the big picture on software jobs in Finland at the moment, and then what does the software job market look like in the near future. So just looking at the sort of the big picture, there's a lot of small companies in Finland employing less than 10 employees in the software related fields, and then looking at the bigger companies, the number tends to stay a little bit similar, even though the fields are getting bigger and bigger year on year because of all the company mergers and consolidations, and then looking at the different regions in Finland, it's easy to notice that more than half of the software-related jobs are in the Helsinki region in Uusimaa, and really thinking about, okay, if you consider landing a job in software in Finland. There's no other way to look, even though I must emphasize that really it's all the university cities that provide software-related education degrees. They do have quite healthy, but a lot smaller ecosystems. And really kind of like Mikkeli region, it's a lot smaller in population as well, but here's an example of 210 software professionals. A couple of years ago, a year and a half ago, that was located in that region. So it's a completely different story to say 30,000 people working in software in the Helsinki region, to say 30,000 people working in software in the Helsinki region. Okay, looking at the near future, it's good to sort of look at the big picture, kind of like the different factors affecting the future. So pestle analysis is quite a useful one. And just a quick glance through it. This is based on the Ministry of Employment material about a year ago. So about the political factors, looking at the global scene, the global players coming especially from the US, of course, affect a great deal. Over the past couple of years, the protectionism has been an issue as well, something that we hadn't seen that much before that for a period of time. Then there's the economic elements, open markets, affecting most definitely our field. There's more and more of outsourcing, and partly related to that being the lack of skilled employees, as there's been a lot of talk, especially here in Finland, about that topic. The technological scene is obvious that things are progressing super quick in tech, and everything's becoming digital if it hasn't been yet, and it's still curious. I think it was last year, half of all the SMEs basically don't yet have sort of a digital mark, or kind of like digital tools providing a key element of their business. About the social elements, Finland's definitely facing the elderly population challenge in the coming decades, and at the same time, urbanization is continuing very rapidly, and there's a sort of a double vacuum elements in place. There's the Helsinki region growing quickly, kind of like because of folks moving from abroad to Helsinki region, but then also from within the country, people are moving to Helsinki region. But also then the university cities then are growing sort of from within the region. So there's sort of a double dynamic in place with regards to that one. Then of course the polarization of society is a challenge. I think Finland's pretty unequal place still, but the gap between the haves and have-nots is growing for sure. And something always to pay attention to with regards to all things digital and the cloud surface, cloud platforms, and etc. Where does the energy come from, and also what's the need for electricity, and looking forward to many advancements in that sector as well. There's then the legislative perspective as well to be considered. So there's the EU and Finland elements in place. The data structures, ownerships, and the rights of the citizens, and to privacy. So something to bear in mind when looking into the future. Okay, just briefly then, a few slides on our software development before I finish in the near future Finland. Okay, currently the pretty much binary job market. There's the organizations able to hire in English, and coming more and more, but yet still there are certain fields where Finnish is pretty much required, or Swedish for that matter. So the public and health sectors, the SMEs I mentioned, the rural side of Finland. I'm talking in 2 weeks' time to the international students of Seinäjoki applied school of university, and you know, it's something completely different in that context to land a role over there. English is indeed becoming more and more prevalent. I think we are all aware of that, and that's going to be happening even more so in the future. This talk, especially in Finland, of a lack of software developers, it's really all about lack of, okay, do it all, know it all, settle on mediocre salary type of a lack of developers. And I think, well, I'll touch on the salary aspect as well in a little while, but it's a key element that when we're looking into the future, we definitely need more women, because the field is still very much sort of male focused in terms of who actually do the coding and etc. But also internationals in Finland, that's for sure. And really, I think the winning organizations are going to be the ones that say no to the sort of this cynical, okay, no juniors, we require all people be full stack, whatever that then means, but rather go with the okay, you're most welcome. We have excellent coaching and training opportunities and inclusion of junior developers who are motivated to learn and etc. And of course, when you sort of provide this type of an work environment, it means also that, once people learn new skills, the junior salary, gets an add-on and etc. To make sure that people are committed and engaged with the company. And of course, all the other wonderful elements of working in a supportive and encouraging and inclusive environment. Another dimension is then the salary, and then with regards to the salary in Finland, the emerging element is that the freelancing or the gig economy has really started to pick up pace over the past decade, or more like 4-5 years. And Finland's a little bit late in comparison to some of the other European countries, and there really is a bit of a pay gap in between. Of course, when you pay attention to all the sort of costs and such, like when one is charging the sort of all-inclusive fees, say, which add up to 12 to 14 with the said rates over here. There are costs that need to be covered, but still, post-tax, we are talking about a higher rate than in employment. And I believe in the future, this gap will grow, especially with regards to the post-tax, because there's the element of corporate tax being fairly flat, whereas then the personal tax, being very progressive here in Finland. Of course, it needs to be emphasized that, of course, freelancers and as such, like, they do require many years of experience, but that's something definitely to consider, and for the individuals, but at the same time, a phenomenon that I expect to see more in place in Finland. And then the question of where the work's done. Is it remote? There's, the COVID times have made it pretty clear that, a lot of organizations that say that, yes, we can work from homes or wherever, even though, just previously there was an adamant statement that there's absolutely no way that people can work from home. All of a sudden it's been possible. And then the question of thinking about doing remote work extensively in Finland, I think a lot of companies do then start considering nearshoring or offshoring, and but at the same time, I don't see on-site, kind of like a rigid on-site, being any type of a answer for the companies outside certain, say, security issues or such like, and I'm sort of thinking that considering these two elements, rigid on-site not really, or flat out remote. Not necessarily if it becomes sort of an element that can also create a bit of a put certain roles perhaps in jeopardy of being offshoring. I see sort of the on-site, at least on paper, but remote in practice to be sort of the answer quite a lot of the times, and really meaning that perhaps then looking at the urbanization trend that we touched upon briefly, that it might be decreased a little bit when people are able to say, choose places to stay at a little bit further away from Helsinki, but still to be within sort of a reasonable commute distance. So, for example, 2 hours, 3 hours from Helsinki, you can take the early morning train to come to Helsinki for the day, and then head back to wherever. And that might be the case, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I suppose, when thinking about what's certain, I, from a recruiter's point of view, see that the tech agnostics, will continue to do well. So being open and learning new skills and new frameworks and such, kind of like on a sort of a natural way of just doing the work, to be constantly learning alongside, even though of course React's very, very big at the moment, and etc. There's a lot of talk about low code, how that is affecting the future, but I suppose at the moment, at least, the call for high quality user experience and sort of the trendiest of the experiences to be provided for the people. I think that as long as that type of a trend is in place, that can work as a bit of an antidote to the stricter low code implementations. But we'll see. Many thanks. Just a quick ad to finish off with. There's a podcast called Digital Leader Talks that I touch upon various topics that might be of interest to you. Just today out the session with Milja Köpsi, and we talked about why women are needed in software. I suppose we all know the reason, but if you like to hear a bit of that discussion, do join in. Many thanks. Was I on time? I suppose to some extent.
Yeah, perfectly on time, and thanks for the overview. I think the future is going to be really interesting in Finland, and I actually moved back to Finland. I was living in Austria for a couple of years, and then I found a house, but it's right at the countryside. So it's sort of I live middle of nowhere, but with really good quality, and I feel maybe for some people that's more of an option now after Corona than before Corona. What do you think of this?
Okay, can't hear you yet. The video is back.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
Can you hear me?
Yeah. So, yeah, no, it's fine. So, what do you think of the impact of the pandemic on the Finnish job market? Do you think it changes somehow on the IT sector, or what do you think?
Might be that Saku doesn't hear us.
Yeah, I think there's a technical problem. So
probably. I can comment on my side that listening to Saku's story, I myself moved to the not maybe rural area, but Paimio, which is near Turku, between Turku and Salo, because the pandemic showed that you can really work from any place. So I think it's one way to look at how the pandemic might affect the job market in total.
Yeah, let's see if Saku can get his setup working. I mean, we can get back to this questions later as well. We have something from YouTube. So do you see that changes the benefits wanted to provide it with Office being places that developers see less? Anyone can take this one?
I think it's a balance, like, I think it's an open discussion between the employees and the employers, like what do people need in different times of their lives and in different job markets. So I don't think it's a one thing fits everybody, but it's a company thing that you need to discuss whether you want to have a fancy office in the middle of the Helsinki or whether you want to have benefits like proper working stations at homes. I guess I was stealing Mika's words.
Yeah, that's sort of like in the past there was this discussion that in some companies you get a bouncy castle or get this where you have the balls and you go dive in the balls, and like this funny stuff at the office or pool table or something fun. So you get that at the office, and then employer thinks they don't have to pay so much. But I mean, of course, now that you cannot get to the office, maybe that's changing a little bit. So you don't get so much value out of the office. So maybe the benefits have to change as well.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit too early for really seeing what kind of new trends in terms of benefits will raise out of this crisis or out of this learning. Right now, we're just letting the dust settle. We're realizing that this is here to stay and we are going to be remote for who knows ever after. And that, of course, also brings new kind of challenges for companies to attract employees, for instance. So they need to be able to adapt also to people staying at home and to the mental well-being or the physical well-being and so on, and also the socializing aspect. But right now I'm really looking forward. That's a great question that I've seen. There has been also some titles in the media that some big companies are going to kind of maybe reduce the pay of people who are fully working remotely or something like that, and that's in the States, and they're kind of really big companies. I don't think any of that kind of trend is ahead of us, but it's going to be interesting to see on how to attract skills or people to join companies.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you have different types of companies. Some are more able to adapt, and some are maybe want to go back to the office when it becomes possible. So it's that's one point. And then this. I think maybe in some cases you start asking yourself, do I need the office anymore? So should I keep paying the rent for the office because it's not likely very cheap, especially if you have a big and nice office, or do you want to keep it distributed and then maybe you rent some space every once in a while? Maybe that's so. Let's see. There's comment. I think one big change that's going to happen to remote work is that it's harder to justify location-based salaries, especially when developers can look for jobs anywhere or everywhere. I think that's a good point. So, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what's happening in the States already with some of the top tier companies, and of course that is well justified. So you don't need to pay the kind of the really hard salary to support someone living in the Bay Area in San Francisco, for instance. People can't just move elsewhere, but it's going to be really tricky because if people are still supposed to be on site for a certain time, for instance, or if they need to be able to come to the office, you can't expect then to pay them less for them to move somewhere to a cheaper location and start commuting suddenly. So it's going to be, I guess there is going to be some kind of interesting period coming up to see on how things really will work out for both companies or employers and employees.
Yeah. I fully agree with that. And it's really hard discussion because at the same time, if you do require people to come to the middles of centers of Helsinki or Turku or Tampere, then you need to provide them the means to do that. But on the other hand, is it the employer's responsibility to really care where the person is staying? It's like we can live wherever we want, just as long as we're able to do the work we're paid and hired to do.
Right. So let's see. We don't have more from YouTube, but it's. Of course, we can get back to the topic once Saku gets back. We have some little technical issues, but maybe what do you think, Mika? Do you want to go? Should we go to your bit now and then discuss a little bit more, or?
Yeah, sure. We could take my part, which is a nice continuation to where Saku started, and I've been actually thinking on how could I contribute to this topic that we have today. And then I've been thinking, okay, React. I'm not that technical. I have to admit that I can't really go into a topic that would be attracting the whole audience to kind of be amazed by something really technical. But because I came to React myself about a year ago, and I really was kind of struggling with kind of finding the confidence to apply for a position that was calling for React, because I have, well, Angular background in that sense. So this topic is going to be on how can you score a job or a project if you don't have React as a keyword on your CV. And I'll just walk through this topic from the hiring manager's point of view. I really want to keep this as a motivation speech to tell people that, hey, go for it. Even though you don't have certain skills that someone is asking for, it doesn't really kind of, it's not a reason for you to kind of, well, look elsewhere. And
right, so
yeah.
Yes, please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, sure. I don't really have a presentation for this. I want to keep this authentic, so I just have a little bit of notes here to keep on track. But it really has started to kind of turn out on the market that React is now the #1 option that projects are being started with, that companies are hiring for, and that huge demand for people who do have the React background, which causes them to kind of be in a dream position that they really can go to figure out what the company is that they want to join, what kind of project, and more specifically, they really can ask for the salary that kind of they want to see on the paper. But on the other side, there is also other people who don't have React in their skill set yet. So does this situation, this polarization of React versus Angular, Vue.js, and so on, does this mean that people just have a kind of a poorer standing in this competition? Of course, eventually it comes back to people's interests. So if you are into something specific, then you can't forcefully go to React. But if you are interested in React, and this target is this topic is targeted at people who may have maybe joining this session or look at the kind of the recording later on, that who doesn't have kind of a React background is still kind of really kind of in demand on the market as well. It's not just that people like experienced React developers would have job openings. It's for people who do have a front-end background. Mm-hmm. So that being said, I myself, as I mentioned already earlier, I'm nowadays working as a team lead. So I do have I'm working with a team of about 10 developers with Fullstack. So we do have a React front end, and we have an Elixir backend. We have a database and APIs and so on. So in that sense, I also now have started to React myself, but having an Angular background, I really went through this challenge of looking at the job market and all these job ads just kind of pushing for React skills, React developers, and so on. I'm also an in-house guy, so I've always worked for product companies. I've never been in consulting, and so this perspective also comes from hiring people in-house. So if you are a consultant, or if you are in the consulting industry, it's really more about then this hard skill of React versus having maybe a different kind of a skill set to offer with all the soft skills as well. But then it's also now I'm specifically talking about the job market and how to get a job, and not how to get started in that job. So I won't go into how to learn React to yourself, but rather on how to enter a project, or how to kind of reach out to a company that may be hiring. So the big question is, what if my CV lacks React? If I don't have this keyword, what's really happening then? I would say that you're not alone, because there is a lot of people who do have skills in a variety of JavaScript frameworks or libraries, and the competition has been so diverse in like a couple of years ago, but now it's just everything is asking for React. So there is a lot of people moving from Angular towards React. It's also about front-end development, so it's not about the actual library as such. So if you are into front-end development, if you have like a decent background in front-end development, it's not about the library. So you will be really getting up to pace quite quickly. And React is beautiful in that sense, at least based on my own experience as well, that it's quite a shallow learning curve, so that you can start contributing to a team, or you can provide value to a team quite quickly. So that's it. You are in the game. So don't kind of hold back if you want to kind of apply for a position that calls for React skills, but you don't have any yet. Maybe it's interesting to jump to the other side, so to the actual site that is behind the job ad. So there's also some insights that may be valuable to people to know that, again, also here, if a company or a hiring manager is putting a job ad live, React in this case then would be one of the keywords. It's about more than just one of these keywords that needs to be met by an applicant. It's about really a position that is not curved in stone. So if you read a job ad, you really have to take it with a pinch of salt, because the job ad may be outdated. It may have been copy pasted from somewhere. I'm not going to kind of talk on what really happens, but it's really that it's some kind of a frame, and there is really more to it. It's mainly about some gaps that have been addressed, that a company or a team needs to be filled. And besides these known gaps, there is a whole series of unknown gaps as well that maybe a hiring manager is not aware of or hasn't thought of yet. But if they receive a profile that is really kind of standing out, even though there is no React mentioned, they can still see that, hey, that profile is actually containing a lot of these gaps, that person could be filling a lot of gaps we have, versus just someone that does have 5 years React experience and maybe nothing else. And of course, it's about the team. So if you do have an existing team and you're hiring for someone to be added to that team, it's a little bit like a house of cards in a good sense. So you get one more card that you have to place on top of that house. And it's really about completing a team and not putting the whole team at stake. And here again, if you have someone who's really excellent in React, like perfect, but if it's not the right personality for the team, then it's also kind of a drawback. So it's about more than just one keyword in the CV. Now, jumping back to the developer's point of view, or thinking of how do I step into React? How do I really get into a company, or how do I nail a position that is about developing React? Again, it's a keyword. So, well, of course, it's a really fascinating library if you go into the details, but it is a keyword, and it's something that if you don't have it yet, just convert it to some interest. Lets the recipient know that you really want to kind of call it a want to have, like it's something that you want to learn. I think that's, if you're really highlighting and pushing for like something that you want to learn, it's always a really interesting read for someone to go through an application, for instance, or in a job interview, for instance. And then, of course, focus on what you already can offer. So this is in particular to fill these gaps that you you may have to fill for a company, but the company doesn't really know yet. I still want to emphasize that having any kind of experience with modern frameworks, with modern tools in general, of course, TypeScript, Angular, Vue, you name it. And of course, also functional programming, for instance, is going to be a huge benefit, of course, in this competition. And then it's about the soft skills, and then it's just the perspective. So it's about the diversity, and it's also something that Saku mentioned earlier in his presentation, that we really need to have like as many perspectives at companies and teams as possible. So the long story short, the market really is in desperate need to get React developers here in Finland. Of course, all kind of developers, but because this is about React, so it is in specific that there is a lot of companies hiring for React. So we do need a lot of people who are at least interested in learning React. And I would say it's about hiring for front end and training for React. So it's not that you really must have React experience. If you have a long or an interesting background, if you have less of background, but you have a lot of motivation, it's still that you are in the game. Again, just to have it mentioned, if you have experience from modern tools, it is going to help you out. So it's not just about React, it's about the way on how front-end is being developed nowadays compared to 10 years back with just jQuery and so forth. And maybe it's even an advantage that you are new to React. You don't need to have all this experience. Maybe you have a fresh opinion, or maybe it's also more joyful actually on the market that you are not being torn apart when a lot of companies are going to really fight for your 5 years of React experience. I've recently seen when a former colleague of mine has entered the market, and it was almost bloody to see on how some companies were throwing offers at that person. It's kind of the situation that you don't want to end up in, because you still have to make a decision, and it's a high risk that under these turbulences you can't have a clear mind and you end up making a bad call, and later on, a couple of months, you will be in the same situation back on the market. Yeah, that's about it. I probably didn't use 15 minutes, so
yeah, it's fine. I think maybe it's good to go back to some points and revisit them with Saku and others. One of the points is that, like, I don't know much about recruiting, but and I'm not really good at applying to positions. But I mean, so I guess you can answer this one. Like, are you always looking for perfect fit? Like, you want 100% fitting person, or you go 90% or 80% or 50%, or what's your limit when you sort of have a position to fill? And I guess you want to fill it quite soon. You don't want to wait 1 year or 6 months or 3 months. How much do you compromise, or how much are you willing to compromise to get the position filled in time, instead of waiting for potentially better person to show up?
I have to be honest that we have been really lucky this year, that we have been looking for new people to join the team, and we also found really great personalities and skills. So in that sense, it's really kind of, I'm a bit polarized to kind of only see now kind of the positives here, but it's about a deadline, of course, also that you need to get someone to join the team and to kind of to provide more hands and a fresh mindset, but you can't really jeopardize too much. You can't go down too much. And I would say on the overall match, the personality must fit the team. It's still like, if you have good chemistry in a team, and I would say that we really do have a great team at the moment. It's too much to lose to take risks and just go to hire the first person or the kind of too easily. But you also can't just go for, hey, that's like perfect React background. It's really more deep than that. And I know that this is my opinion. I mean, I have a slightly different maybe sent to this, and Saku knows me from, we have been kind of in our previous life also in contact already, and I've also been looking for some position that has a slightly different kind of set of tasks maybe to offer. But I personally really like to look into people who do have their unique set of skills and a really kind of unique perspective to add to the team. So it's not about like 10 keywords that need to be met. I would say that it's certain keywords that, like a certain percentage of keywords that may need to be met, but if it's a really interesting fit, and that fit may even come in a different way. So if I'm kind of, it's good to let the team know, or kind of just your network know, that if you're looking for someone, or that you may have an opening also, so that on the silent market, it's also a really great chance just to talk to someone and to kind of identify if someone has to offer something. So we also ended up, for instance, hiring someone for the backend at the same time as we were focusing on the front end, simply because some of our team members had a really good contact or did a really great job. And maybe that's also part of the kind of future of work, that the whole team starts acting as a kind of a part of recruitment. And it's not just that someone from recruitment at the company would be focusing on this task or position, because eventually the team knows what they are working on, what kind of person they would like to join, and maybe also what kind of gaps there are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Let me pull something from YouTube. So I think the single libraries frameworks are a bit overhyped due to sales working that way. We need developers who understand component-based UI development and have other skills around that. So what do you think of this?
Yeah, I would say that's really a lot in line with what I've been also trying to push for. It's not just about a keyword. It's really about having like the experience in kind of in this context, in the full kind of front end, for instance. It's really about knowing more behind that, and then the skills around that. For instance, if you have someone who is like a front end developer but also is into design, it's a huge asset. If you have someone who is into content design, for instance, to be a bit more specific, that person then has that viewpoint of thinking of, well, what if a massive amount of content comes to a view? Is it going to look ugly and that kind of stuff? So it's like knowing in advance what kind of risks are coming up and so on. So the single library point of view, of course, from a company's perspective, it's a benefit if you have multiple projects, everything is in the same library and so on. But on the long run, of course, it may be a little bit boring for the developers too, because people really like to try out new things as well. And right now, it just happens to be such a call for React. So we'll see how things turn out. It's at the moment. It didn't used to be this way, and what it looks like in a couple of years from now, we'll be seeing. So the most important thing is just to be able to adapt and learn. So the most important thing is just to be able to adapt and learn kind of new skills.
Yeah. So is full stack still a thing? Are you hiring for full stack developers, or are you going for more specific ones again?
We do have front-end developers in our team. We do have back-end developers in our team, but we do also have full-stack developers. So, and it's a huge benefit because these people know when thinking of specs, for instance, they're able to look at something all the way through from the UI to the database and perhaps APIs and so on. If you have someone then who's really kind of only back-end, these are the experts on the backend domain, and the front end people then probably have more insights about kind of working with UX and UI and so on. So I would say it's the perfect mix to have like people who are specified or specific on a very kind of on one of the sides. But full stack, I would say full stack, at least when I started my career, it was the only thing, and it used to work really nice back then.
Yeah. So related to this, now I mean, full stack is sort of I see it's very valuable, but do you see that there is even more room for specialization, that you would get really strong at some small niche, and then like market yourself to companies in this? You're like the top guru at this certain thing. That's really a small thing, but like a
I'm not a consultant, and I'm not in the kind of the consulting business. So I would say no. That's my point. But personally, I appreciate that it's not going too deep. But of course, if someone is really deep, like hyper focused on something, some niche that may be of benefit in something, but then of course, does a project or does a company need to think that that specific is another question. That is it kind of then already too deep insights that there are. Personally, I don't go that deep. So I've always been more of a generalist than a specialist. And in that context, I would also say that try to kind of get a wider perspective to be able to connect to others, and also to have like this understanding on what's happening on the other side of the fence as well.
Maybe it's a good time to pull Saku to discussion. So what do you think of this like hyper specialization, so that you will get really good at some certain topic where you're like in the top 10 people of the entire world on something? How do you see that in terms of getting a job, or it's more a consulting thing, like that you become the king of the hill or queen of the hill?
I think the job market works both ways. I think there's definitely call for room for super specialists. I think I've gone through quite a few cases with, say, cloud architects or whatever, and who've been doing different architectural designs and etc. And the mindset of having then kind of like a vast experience on a vast number of applications to be set and created architecture around and etc. The salaries go in line, but there's always becoming that moment in time when that sort of super specialization becomes then anchored with the business logic. So it starts to be a case for consultancy work, which is then gradually being drawn away from the more technical work into yes, still understanding a lot of the technical details and etc. But at the same time, kind of like year on year becoming more and more of a well, not a PowerPoint consultant, but somewhere halfway towards that.
Yeah, that is sort of my personal experience. I mean, I focused a lot in certain technology, and then became really known around it, and then it's bringing work and money. So there's, I guess it depends. Like, what's your aim? Like, do you aim to get employed to work in a bigger company, or do you want to do something small for yourself? Or maybe it's sort of, maybe there are many ways to approach. One thing that came to mind is this topic of soft skills. So, I mean, it's very, you can say in a job advertisement that, yeah, I'm looking for someone that knows React and Redux and Webpack and ESLint and a lot of technical terms. About what do you think of like the value of soft skills in the people you interview for positions, or how do you value soft skills in applicants? Maybe Mika first.
Yeah, of course, there's a long range of soft skills, but in usually like thinking of the overall context of soft skills, I really I think it may be even more important than the hard skills, because if you are able to adapt and learn, for instance, sorry, you will also be able to use your soft skills then to kind of to really build something that is stronger, like all in all then. Yeah, it's of course it's just about finding the real balance. I would say that soft skills, it's maybe not personality and soft skills. It's probably it's a different thing, but eventually all these soft skills really make it also easier to kind of get along with people, or to have someone who comes to help you out if you have some question, some problem or something. And maybe this brings it back also to, well, a topic we'll be looking into shortly, in kind of the joy of, or the joyful future. But it's also about eventually, I mean, the time spent at work, you need to also be able to enjoy that, because eventually if you are at the startup, for instance, it's, to be true, honest, it's a small chance that it's going to really grow big. So you don't want to lose that time that you have spent like kind of pushing for some success, but you also want to have some great memories. And I would say the soft skills here are really helping out also to like create a story that you have been working with really great people on a project, well, that turned to be outside a sunset technology, but you still have something to tell. And soft skills in this context, versus if you would have been working with like the top-notch developers, maybe you wouldn't have that much to tell. Maybe you don't really have a story that you can kind of think of when you're having a cold beer in the front of your summer cottage on a summer night. But I would say soft skills are really the spices then, whereas the hard skills are the actual food that you're putting into your mouth.
Yeah, Elisa, maybe you want to continue on this one because it's sort of your specialty.
Yeah, I was just loving how this is feeding my confirmation bias so badly.
Sorry.
So of course I think they're highly valuable, but they're highly valuable precisely what Mika said. The thing is, like Saku said and like Mika said in the previous speeches, IT sector is more and more teamwork. It's like there are very few projects where you can truly work alone. And those teams are becoming diverse, they are becoming multinational, they are coming like truly global and hybrid. And all of those requires that we are better at being with different kinds of people who are not certainly like we are. And that requires our capability to know ourselves and to be okay with others. And we haven't really never ever been taught how to do that. So if you have those skills, if you're willing to learn those skills, if you're willing to be okay of not knowing those skills, that is so super valuable from the perspective of the hiring part, but also from the perspective of your own life.
Yeah. I think that's true. That I mean, the soft skills are something that you can apply in your own life a lot, likely a lot more than React skills. So it makes sense. Maybe Saku, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think if there's one thing in all the recruitments I like to sort of assess, it's kind of like, how reflective a person is. In a lot of the roles, there might not need be a massive need for a very reflective personality, but as long as one is able to sort of reflect on one's own behavior or one's own behavior in relation to others, that's already sort of a sign that one's able to contribute to a team without a very sort of a perhaps volatile personality or very sort of a this is my way or the highway sort of personality, but rather think about how to go about it and understand other people's points of view. So I think if there's one sort of soft skill that I like to call the superpower, it's that reflection. It saves many headaches at the workplace.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess you get into these interesting situations when you have to recruit, because maybe you find somebody that's really, really good technically, but then maybe they're not so nice as a person. It's not somebody you want to work with. Then you might have somebody that's really nice to work with, but maybe their technical skills are not so good. So how do you choose between these two people? Like, do you take the really technically good person or the nice person? So what's your choice?
It's it really is all about the technical skill. If you have that sort of a comparison. However, I think oftentimes it's more about having a super skilled or a very skilled, and then kind of like then the positive personality and the sort of easy to go along with it and etc. Can really make a difference. But of course it all boils down to the question how badly tempered the person is.
Mm.
Yeah, if you're the best of what you do, you can be an asshole. But if you're not the best of what you do, then it helps if you're easygoing and nice to work with.
Mika, do you have anything to add, or what's your take?
Yeah, well, we see it's complicated. And if you have someone who really stands out, who is kind of difficult to work with, though, it's like a large tree just throwing a lot of shadow or shade on the others, so that other people may not be able to start flowering in that sense. So I guess it is that balance. So is it 70% hard skills, 30% soft skills? Is it 60, 40, 80, 20? It's you can't really say it that way. It really is kind of case by case, I would say. There is a lot of risks that both ways have. So if you have someone who is really easy to kind of work with, but who doesn't know about the technical domain, you can't really reach anything. And the other way around, if you have someone who's perfect in coding something but doesn't care about specs, it's also the same case, that you don't really end up having a working solution either.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, did you have something to add, Saku?
Yeah, just thinking about that, even if you were the best, but if it's a question of working in a consultancy role, be that within, say, a corporation or as at a consultant house, it's hard to get by if one is not focused also on the people side. So it just makes sense.
Yeah. So speaking of teams, what do you think of this? Normally we think that development is lonely work, that you're sitting with your computer doing the specifications and writing the code and so. But then you have pair coding, you have mob programming, or that you will do programming in a different way in a bigger group. So do you think that has some implications on hiring or working with people, or have you tried different ways of working in your companies or with people? What's your experience on this, that you will change the way you work to make people work better?
It's also a question that you mentioned pair coding or pair programming, for instance. It's also something that usually people say that, hey, would be a really nice to do thing. But the last time I've been in pair coding, that's quite a while back already. It's just it may be a little bit difficult to set that up, and it's quite challenging also that you really have to be kind of. It takes more than 100% to work with someone on the same lines of codes. It's really great experience, though. I would say that it's important to have a decent process on how to kind of have the specs handed over to the developers, and then you have someone then maybe focusing on some part of what needs to be developed, and then the code review, for instance, is the discussion point then where people are walking through what has been implemented and what decisions have been made. And that's really kind of also the sparring side that you can have, like it's the developer socializing point, for instance. It's like over in kind of GitLab, if you have a merge request, pull request, then it's really where you talk to people and where you can show your great ideas, your great sites, or where you can just also like act quite offensive. Or you can really also act very social, and you can it's a great way also for juniors, for instance, to learn a lot if you have the code review. So I'm not sure about the peer programming, for instance, but I would say that the code review, it's where you really connect the team.
Yeah.
Anything to add, Elisa or Saku?
Yeah, it's pair programming or mole programming is just one aspect of it. But for example, retrospectives or sprint planning or dailies are just as well situations where it really shows whether you're able to be with people or not.
I look forward to more kind of like coach roles whereby someone's perhaps doing half time coding and then half the time looking after, say, group or groups of more junior developers, and to be able to sort of nurture kind of like help newcomers into the field as well. And I think for the people who sort of feel that they like to have that people side to their work, I think those types of roles can be quite meaningful.
Yeah, well said, because that eventually also requires a lot of effort by the mentor or by kind of the senior who will take someone new on board. It's not that you can handle your daily work at the same time. You need to put enough bandwidth aside, and that's really nice you to have brought that up, because it takes time and it's valuable time invested.
And when done properly, kind of like that model can scale up as well a little bit. So raise it up at the workplace.
Yeah, I think it's related to what Saku mentioned in his presentation, that we have this discussion in Finland that there's a talent shortage or companies cannot find people, but maybe it's the other way around. Maybe we should have companies that are willing to train people. So if you change the system, maybe you start finding people easier. But that's sort of a question. I mean, how should companies go more into this direction of training? If you recognize on company side that I have trouble finding people, maybe I should change the way we work. How do you change the process of the company?
An example from it's a year and a half ago when I was still working at Elisa, and they were hiring summer trainees in January, and the aim was to get, I think it was 3 people kind of like into this particular unit, and they got really super good folks applying, and what they ended up deciding was they ended up hiring, was it 15, and with the idea that someone was thinking about, okay, I'll be guiding folks, say 15 to 20% of the time. They made it a half a times type of a position, and they were able to scale it up, and they knew that they're going to have investments to be made in the near future, and it just made sense to invest in the people and etc. And high majority stayed also after that sort of the initial period. So I'm just super excited to see more and more of these initiatives sort of popping up, but still I'm sort of missing this mindset that's actually sort of the very kind of like essential way of all good sort of coding workplaces and companies.
Yeah, I think it makes sense that the companies have to change a little bit to adapt to the situation and the market. I think one of the aspects in the Finnish market, as far as I understand, is the change in the future, or what it actually looks like from your perspective. Do you agree with it, or do you think it's easy for someone from outside of Finland to get a job in Finland in software development?
Shall I go first?
Yeah, sure.
I think there's two questions in what you just mentioned. One of the questions is to land a role in Finland from abroad, and that entails a relocation process. And then, of course, it means what affects is, if you're within the EU, so it's all very simple to sort of just move over here and all the rest of it. If it's outside the EU and one doesn't have a visa to Finland, it will take a longer time to set all the paperwork up. But still, a lot of companies and more companies are doing that, and it just requires the mindset that the companies have the expertise of doing that, and they have the process of, okay, they know it's going to take about half a year, so they plan ahead and etc. And I think it's definitely a trend, and all the scale ups, especially startups who've landed a good lump of money to scale up business. They've just noticed that it's super difficult to recruit people from within the country, kind of like in bigger numbers, and relocations is then the way forward. And then about kind of like being already in the country, and then to land a role in Finland as a developer without say Finnish skills. I think it varies according to the geographical location, and a little bit according to the industry as well. And so if we're looking at software consultancies, the consultancies that serve, say, the public sector require Finnish mostly. The consultancies that then work more with the private sector companies and multinationals and whatnot, they're definitely more open to using only English and etc. So it varies a little bit. I can carry on after others have commented, unless you say that's enough.
Yeah, maybe we can do a round. So Elisa and Mika, if you have anything to add, and maybe Saku can go further after that.
I just only comment that I have is that I'm seeing the need to be able to speak English well. So I think it also works the other way around. I can't really comment on how much the Finnish will affect the job market, but if you're a Finn-speaking developer who doesn't have a good English-speaking skills, then that's another thing. So you really should pick that up, because more and more jobs will require also that. So working both solely on Finnish or solely on English might not be the ideal way to work, or the ideal way to go forward.
I don't even remember a position I would have been working at that would have been in Finnish, to be honest. So I've been lucky enough to have this international setup at startups or whatever companies I've been working with. And I would say that today the language is no barrier, as long as you speak and you're able to communicate fluently in English, then you have what it takes. And looking at an application, I don't think that Finnish being mentioned would have any large kind of difference. Of course, depending if you have user interfaces that are aimed at certain languages, of course, I would say it is a benefit if someone speaks German, someone speaks French, and you do have like certain markets that you're targeting, that you also have maybe that mindset to think of some culture changes in the behavior then also. But this is not about the language. This is about someone knowing about the local culture then. So that's a different topic then again. But right now, we're just kind of having some changes in our team. Right now, we only have Finnish-speaking members, but any of the written messages still is in English. We're going to have someone new joining soon to our team that will then kind of force back to using English. But because we are using English anyhow, so it doesn't really make a difference.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. So you have to sort of prepare your organization to accept English-speaking people if you want to recruit in English. Because I guess in the worst case, your source code will be in Finnish. I mean, it has happened in the past that people go and write their source in Finnish, but I think most developers in Finland, they still write in English when they write code. Maybe Saku, you can continue. You have something in mind.
Yeah, two comments further. There's one is kind of like all the companies that welcome coders in using English. Then my question to those companies is okay, what type of language ceiling do they have in place? So, if you're as a developer, welcome to join in with English. How about then, becoming a developer manager, for example, or such like? And it tends to be that you find a sort of Finnish language ceiling in place if one is interested in something like that. And I think the companies that hire sort of then developer manager might be in English, but there's beyond that it might be a lot more trickier to proceed, and that's something to bear in mind, kind of like realistically. And another one is then considering moving to Finland, not making a massive advertisement here, only pointing out the kind of like critical elements, but really, if one and when one is able to land a role in Finland quite easily in the field of tech, if the spouse, for example, coming with a family, if the spouse is from another field, it's a great idea to have a look what's the opportunities to land a relevant role here in Finland, because not all the fields are like tech. So that's something to bear in mind.
Yeah, in some ways we're very, very fortunate because we work international most of the time, and so maybe it's a good time to move to what Elisa has in mind with your talk about the future.
Sure.
Yeah.
Will you put me on stage?
Yeah, it's your turn to go on stage. So let's get ready.
All right. Last speech of the day, or last speech of the conference. I'm excited and I'm super honored that you give me this opportunity to talk with you. As I mentioned earlier, my title of today is The Future of Work is Enjoyable. And there's many sparks from Saku's and Mika's presentations present in this topic. Yet I thought that I would take a little bit more personal view on this. So I'm not coming to you as a developer of people. I'm coming to you as Elisa, who had an epiphany this summer. And I thought that I'd use this opportunity to share it with you because it does indeed relate to the future of work. But before I can get to that, we need to back up a year because the story starts from the summer 2020 when I started to play Heyday. The moment I downloaded Heyday, I was completely and utterly hooked to the game. The micro rewards you get when you harvest the crop and you build stuff and you put them in the boxes and ship them away and gain money and points and rewards to buy new things, it was really tempting and luring. And I was spending quite a lot of time playing Heyday during the summer, a little bit less time playing it during the winter, and then I picked it up again last spring. And I've had this quite intense playing time for about 3 to 4 weeks. I had been playing quite a lot Heyday, and then one Sunday I was sitting in a rocking chair when my spouse came to me and said that, hey, we need to go to meet his sister and her family. And I said to him that, yeah, sure, just give me 4 more minutes so that I can get this ship ready and send it, and then we can go. And he was like, okay, and that was that. But that really stopped me to my tracks. And I was like, wait a second. So what did I just say? Like, we need to wait 4 more minutes so I can ship this ship. Why? So I can get the money and those points from the ship so that I can buy the beehives to make honey products so that I can sell them and get more money, to get the jewelry station to make more products, to put them in the boxes and ship them to get more money, to buy the candle station. And you can kind of see where this is going. I was following the why path for so long that I realized that at the end of the path, there is nothing. It's a mirage. I had this sense that I'll be satisfied and happy when I get the honeycombs or the candle station, but after that comes just another thing to crave for, another thing to go after. And it was already starting to affect my everyday life. I was making my spouse wait for 4 minutes so that I could play more and better. And I want to stress out that there is nothing wrong with playing. Playing is enjoyment, it's leisure, it's fun. It's something that we humans universally need. So playing is not a problem. However, when the playing starts to control me instead of me having fun with the game, that was a path I was not willing to go. So after considering for about 15 to 16 seconds, I deleted the game. And with the deletion came this really weird, rushing sense of overwhelm and emptiness, like, where are my chicken and my sheep, and who's gonna take care of them now? And what do I do now when I don't have a ship to fill and send? Like, what now? Initially. But then after a few moments, that kind of dissolved, and instead I got this weird rushing sense of energy and control. Because previously I was addicted to the game, which is designed to keep you addicted to it, so that I always went to it. Now I had all this time and energy at my hands to use for what I will. And you would think I would have learned something from that experience, but I didn't. So this summer, when my spouse had already gone back to work and I had about a week before my work really kicked in, I was sitting in the same rocking chair. And I was thinking like, yeah, I would like to have this nice little leisure game, something clickable, something fun, something not too heavy. And I had seen these advertisements about this merge magic. So I downloaded it and immediately I was hooked again. I was merging these 3 things to get a better thing, and then I was merging those better things to get an even a little bit better thing, to open new areas, to gain more stuff, to merge, to get a better thing, to open yet another area, to get more stuff, to merge those things. And you can see where this is going. It was going nowhere. I realized in that same rocking chair about 3-4 months later that the same mirage had gotten hold of me again. I had been playing intensely for a week, and I was again sitting on a Sunday in the same rocking chair, had been playing for about 2 hours straight, when I realized that there is nothing at the end. There is no boss level, there is no story to finish, there is nothing there, just more areas to open and things to merge. So again, I deleted it. And with that came the same sense of overwhelm and emptiness, like, what do I do now? Like, what do I click next? And isn't there anything to merge? And you can't really merge like cardboard boxes in the real life to make bigger cardboard boxes. So I was just sitting there with that feeling of emptiness and the sense of overwhelm, and then the sense of energy and control that came afterwards. So I kept on sitting there, and then came the mother of epiphanies. I realized that both of these games, as well as many other games that I've played before, like Candy Crush Saga or Supercell's, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't remember. Anywho, many of these games, or most of these games, have been designed to like ignite the sense of I'll be happy and satisfied when in us. They all make you think that you'll be happy when you get the honeycombs, or you get to merge those things, or you get the Dark Queen. And then when you actually do get them, you are happy for a second, and then you want something new again. And then I realized that this same kind of mechanism is at play in not just these games, but it's at play in our cultures and societies at large. You can take, for example, wealth. There is a certain amount of money we need, and before that we are actually more miserable, and we do get happier the more money we get. But after a certain point, every single raise that we get only makes us happier for a short time, and then we revert back to the same level of happiness we were before the event. And we kind of want more money to get more stuff, and then we need bigger houses to hold that stuff, and then we need more money to get the bigger house, and then we actually need more money to maintain the bigger house, and then we need more stuff to maintain the bigger house, so we need more money. And you can see where this is going. There is no end point to it. So we keep on wanting more money and more stuff, and we never really stop to think to why, and to what extent do we want it. And the same goes, for example, status. We want a CV-worthy job so that we can prove that we're good employees, so that we can get a better project, a better title, more status, more power, so that we can prove that we're worthy, so that we get even bigger title or better title or project or salary or wealth or power. And we don't really stop to think, where will it end? Where will we be happier? And we believe that we'll be happy when we're made the CTO, or when we're made partner, or when we get to build our own business. But every time we achieve a thing, we just revert to back being the same amount of happy we were before that. And third example is audience. So we crave for followers on Twitter, or subscribers for podcasts or YouTube series. We want to tweet more, so more people follow us, and then we have more audience so that we can tweet more to the audience to get more followers. And it doesn't really stop anywhere. And the phenomena I'm describing is called hedonic adaptation. So it's been scientifically proved that we have hedonic adaptation, which means that every time we achieve something, get something, gain something, we are temporarily happier. But a short amount of time later, we will revert back to the same amount of happiness we had before the event, which causes us to run these hedonic treadmills where we crave for things, and then we strive to get those things, and then we actually do get the thing and have a sense of enjoyment, but then we adapt to the thing, so we need to crave yet another thing. And we keep on running in circles round and round again, only ending up back in the same spot. And you can talk to any person with a lot of money or a lot of power or status or a big audience and ask them at which point did they start to feel that they had enough and they didn't crave for anything more, and they were content and happy with what they had. And they will tell you that there isn't such a point. Because anytime we achieve something, we start to want something new. That is how human nature works. So sitting in that rocking chair, I had this realization that this is it. Like, if I'm going to be the same person, regardless of what I achieve, regardless of what the status or the project I'm working in is entitling, or regardless of what type of house I live in, what I have right now is what I'll have after that. I might be maybe a bit older, hopefully a bit wiser, and maybe a bit richer or something, but nonetheless, this is it. This me right now, right here, is still gonna be there. And if I'm not enjoying my life now, if I'm not enjoying the work that I do now, there is no guarantee that whatever it is that I'm running after, it would make me enjoy my life any more than I do right now. And some of you might be like, well, she's a little late to the party. Like, are you only now realizing this? And I'm sad to say that, yeah, I only now realized this. And when I was sitting in the rocking chair realizing this, I had the same amount of overwhelm and emptiness that I had when I deleted the games. Like, now what? So if there's no point running after money or running after status or running after audience or running after that next thing, what do I have now? And what do I really kind of want to do? And I have to say, you can do things with money. You can do things with status. You can do things with audience. But more often than not, we're not trying to get those things to do something. We are trying to get those things because they have become means to an end. They have become the value instead of a tool. And that's problematic because it will not bring us any more happiness or satisfaction. So what I'm guessing, what I see in what Mika said and in what Saku said and in all the talks that I've had and discussions with people that I've held, that we are going to see more and more people who want to work sustainable workloads, because we have finally realized that there is no point of killing yourself with overworking because it doesn't bring you happiness later on. It also means that people start to want to work with interesting and meaningful projects. And by that, I mean that some people want to work for worthy cases and worthy companies. Like, I want to do stuff that will solve a problem I see in the world. But on the other hand, we also see people who want to work for interesting jobs. So they want to problem solve or do coding or designing. And it doesn't have to save the world, but they do have to be interested in the work itself. Because if they are not enjoying the work itself, then why are they doing it when they start running after the money, status, or power? And thirdly, we're going to start to see people feeling content on most days. Like, no amount of Zen will ever make us content on every day. And every single job and every single project and every single cause has parts of it that we are not going to love and like. But we are starting to look for a life that feels content and enjoyable on most days. And that means that people are going to become really hard to lead. Because we all know, if we are parenting and if we are leading, that if you can incentivize people, so if you can bribe and threat, people are easy to lead. If you can incentivize them with money or status or power or audience or whatever it is that they crave for, then you will be able to lead them. But when we start doing things for those things, they are nice bonuses that you get when you do things that actually you enjoy, then it means that people become hard to lure as well. Because we are no longer lured by the promises of power, money, status, bigger things and better things and shinier things. Instead, in order to lead and lure this type of people who have came to the realization, who have seen the mirage, we need to be provided with a job that is worthy of doing and that is enjoyable to do in the moment. Because we have stopped sacrificing our everyday lives in order to be happy when. So to conclude this speech, I will say that future will not make you happy. I don't think that there is anything in the future that will make you particularly more happy than you are right now. But what will make you happy is enjoyable work. So you need to take a look at your work right now and think, is this enjoyable? Am I enjoying doing this work? And if not, then how can I change my everyday life so that my life becomes enjoyable now instead of in the future? Thank you. Juho, you're muted.
Yes, you're muted. That's like, but thanks for the talk. I think that's a great way to end the conference. So what did Saku or Mika have any specific thoughts related to this?
I always have thoughts.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's kind of like what you just shared, Elisa. Is I think it's a super important perspective, and I've sort of after seeing my son's godmother being passed away some years ago to unfortunate case of cancer. I sort of realized in the process of losing her that I like to live my life in the manner that when I look into the future, that if I would learn that I wouldn't have more than half a year time to live, I wouldn't, in essence, change anything in my circumstances. And that's been sort of the guiding principle for the last 5 years. And really, of course, it's speculative. What would be the case if I learned, if I would quit my job straight away and all the rest of it, but still, kind of like the certain principle in the decisions I make. It's kind of like life's too short to work for an employer or in a role that you're not happy in, and that type of stuff. So that's the thought I had in mind. Thank you, Elisa.
And Mika?
Really kind of it made me really silent to kind of listen to what you were talking about, and it really does click. It's also really interesting now to kind of take what it just kind of have been talking about, and then look at, for instance, people at work, and you can clearly see that some people are really happy in doing what they're doing. So they don't really want to continuously climb up that ladder. They are really happy, and they're not after a pay raise because they're happy. They're really kind of satisfied with what they're doing. And then of course you have a lot of other people then who just have one aim, and that is about climbing that ladder. And it's actually interesting that those people who really enjoy what they're doing, that are happy, are also leading a great kind of track, or the kind of work that comes out. It is kind of putting something to the good. It's kind of great stuff that comes out. Whereas when you have someone who just wants to climb up that ladder, then doesn't really kind of think not necessarily that much of what kind of trace they leave. It's a little bit like eating a chocolate bar and just kind of dropping it there, but someone else really kind of thinks of joyfully enjoying that chocolate bar and then making sure that it's kind of disposed correctly as well.
Yeah, that sort of reminds me of this, Peter principle. It roughly states that people are promoted until they're incompetent in the position. So I guess for some people it's better to stay in a position where they're really good at, instead of going to a position that's maybe better paid, but more stressful for them, and maybe it makes them even unhappy because it's not something they can really handle.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that people should want to be raised or getting more salary or aiming for better projects. That's not the point. You can want those things if you care for what you can do in those positions. But if you care about those things as the means of an end in themselves, then it will not make you happier. But like Mika said, that most often we see people who actually enjoy doing what they do, they end up getting a raise because they're good at it, because they actually enjoy and care about the work that they do. And by caring, some people are like, well, that's the world-saving hippie stuff. But I don't mean that everybody wants to or needs to want to save the world. You can if you want to. But if you just want to do your thing that makes you happy every Monday, that you get to open the code editor and actually do the job, then that's good. That's something we should aim at. Then everything else is a byproduct.
Yeah, and I think it's somehow what you just were discussing is related to this concept of like lifestyle. Like how do you live your life? Where do you live your life? When do you wake up? When do you start working? When do you stop working? I changed my life like 180 degrees this year. I mean, I bought a house. I moved to Finnish countryside. And now I'm back into this sort of mode where I go and pick the berries and the mushrooms and potatoes and I get fish from the neighbor. It's enjoyable for me. I mean, that's why I did the whole move in the first place. Because I found that the city lifestyle is not so much for me, but I like this countryside stuff because I was born here anyway. So I guess you just have to find your place where you feel comfortable.
Exactly, and we are so super lucky within the IT sector that we actually do get to mold our jobs to fit our requirements and needs and desires. Like, when do you work? Where do you work? What do you work? Like, all that you get to choose. So take good care of that, like exploit that.
Yeah, it's also like what's work? I mean, one definition is that work is something you do to get paid for something you don't enjoy. But I think that's not a very good definition, because if you can do something you enjoy and maybe you can live out of it, that's something maybe that you should do. So it's sort of worth thinking about what's a good definition for work anyway.
It's a good question.
Yeah, so there's a good comment. One reason I'm an advocate for remote work is it enables us to find more ways of working and ways of living that make us the happiest. So what do you think of this trend of remote?
if I comment quickly, I think that remote work, it can make a massive difference, especially if there's a commute of whatever 45 minutes or 60 minutes. Just today, I was discussing with one talented person, who would have a commute of 60 minutes to the new potential new workplace, and it was clear for him that he's very interested in the role, but he's not keen on working on site more than roughly a day per week. And I think it very much makes sense. Then at the other end, there's people like myself who just happen to join a company with an office 600 meters from my home. So I'm more than happy to work at the office because I get to go away from my home and do the stuff at the office. So I think there's a question of the remote trend and the COVID era sort of giving us more and more flexibility to make decisions kind of like that then suit our lifestyle, and I think if the current employer, I think with good discussions, the current employer will find a way, but if not, there will be others.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with Saku and also with Juhis, but I just one thing I want to nitpick about the word happiest. Happiness is a fleeting emotion. We can't be happy more than a short while at the time, so I would try to aim at being content, like when Juho goes get some berries, you're happy for a moment, and then you're content that they are in your freezer.
Exactly, yeah. But it's like when you do that all the time. I mean, now I get even too many berries and everything, so I'm really happy. Yeah.
Quickly getting back to this remote work part, I think that the actual part that is important is that the employee or the people working are having their own kind of call for making the decision if they want to be at the office or if they want to be remote. Eventually, as Saku mentioned, it's about saving time. It's really nonsense if you have to burn 3-4 hours a day commuting to work. It's sad to lose so much of your lifetime just in sitting in a bus or in a train or somewhere. On the other side, I mean, I just came to the office today to have this call without the kids attached to my legs or jumping in the background, and I had a really nice cycle through Helsinki Central Forest. So there is really the benefit of coming to work as well. So you can convert the commute to kind of a little bit of a physical activity, for instance, but it's about having kind of your own control. And I think to make these decisions at work, where you are working, what you're working with, how you are, what time you're starting, and so on. It's exactly this small control that eventually is also leading to happiness.
Yeah, and related to remote work, I think these days, at least for me, it's somehow important that I have my own workplace at my home. So I have a specific place where I go to work.
Yeah,
and so it's you don't want to mix work with play. It feels like something to consider for remote working.
Yeah, I want to add to that as I'm a people person, I want to also advocate the discussion, like Mika said, that there should be time when you do get together because there is value in bringing people together. Also to do specific job like workshopping or doing fun things together, but to just sort of discuss and chat and mingle and socialize to some extent. Some people need more of that than others, but like I wouldn't go full remote. I would have places for people to come together because there's value in that as well.
Yeah, working remote is a little bit, sorry, Saku, working remote is a little bit too efficient in that sense that you don't really go that way, that you're actually using half an hour or even an hour in the morning, having a coffee with your colleagues, talking about stuff. And that stuff may include work-related topics or maybe something completely different. But that stuff may empty your brain kind of to start from a fresh mind again. It's really that makes work like a joy. And that's really difficult to replicate in this remote work setup. We have tried all kind of tools or artificial ways to force people to having a coffee, and it's not easy. Some people are kind of in it quite easily, and with them you can set up some routine to have a coffee and kind of a video chat. But other people are really just, it's easier at the office where you see someone next to you. Okay, they're just kind of having a small break. Hey, let's go have a coffee, and that coffee leads to a really wonderful discussion. I'm missing that. I'm missing that in this remote setup.
I was only going to come up with a poor joke on saying that the "Let's Party" sign behind you, Mika, kind of like suggests that you're not going to leave that soon.
No, that's actually always here. It's I've just had to find a niche at the office where I'm sure that I'm not disturbing other people.
All right. I think maybe that's enough for the topic. I mean, I have one topic left, so I will open a discussion on the conference itself. So it was for us, it was the first time that we were running online. I mean, for the original, just to go back behind in history so people know, we had to cancel our last year's event in May 2020. So we sold out in February, and then in March we came to a pandemic. So we had to, shut things down. It wasn't enough time to react and do a full online event in that time frame. So then we started experimenting. So we did sort of like online meetups, like 3-hour events for some months, and then we moved to this podcast format, which we are actually using here, which you can witness right now. And then you could say this week, 5 days, it was a lot of work. It was 15 sessions and close to 50 speakers. So it's something we could not achieve live, I think. But at the same time, what I would like to discuss is the future of the conference next year. So what are your feelings on what will the conferences of the future look like? How can we do better online? Should we do something like a mixed format, hybrid conference, or this kind of thing? So how do you see the future of conferences? Maybe if you have anything to say, please do, because I'm really interested to hear how we should do the conference in the future, perhaps.
Well, I just got my second vaccine today, so I'm hopeful that we get to go back to meeting people in conferences live, because I really miss that. But I think some aspect of virtual or hybrid might be there to stay. So, or maybe we could have both. So instead of having just one conference, there could be a smaller one online or a smaller one live and then a bigger one online. So I believe we'll harness things we have learned during the past year and a half and sort of take the best practices and exploit them in the future as well.
Yeah.
It might be just me, but I really enjoyed going around with the character I managed to create myself, and then kind of like looking at what's out there and etc. And I was really kind of like thinking that it would be, I don't know, some mad or crazy gamification element to be added, kind of like would be interesting. But I don't know how it could be made kind of like into a really meaningful one. But at the same time, I think it's important to see people live, and it's just one of those things, kind of like, okay, which pub to head to after this talk and all the rest of that. That type of an element is, of course, super important. So just one of those things. I think you've done well this year.
Yeah, so just to give a bit of context that people know, so we did that tiny online venue, sort of like if the game Zelda. It's 2D, and you walk around and you can see different sessions we had and sponsors and all that. I mean, you have to experiment with this online stuff. One thing I've been thinking about for next year, I mean, already this year we did this experiment in Vienna, because I have good contacts. We did meetups from Tuesday to Thursday, and on Wednesday we had 3 speakers from Vienna, So they were live and they were connected to online events like what we're running right now. So my thinking is maybe it would make sense for the next year, instead of doing a full conference, like having a big venue, because you don't know if you can really book it, we will do after work conference. So from Monday to Friday, from like 5 to 8, and in office space of our sponsors, because we have many sponsors, and I think maybe Mika can confirm, but you like to show your office to potential people that you like to employ. So I was thinking maybe do after work next year, but in the same format, but so that we have some Finnish speakers live, and maybe we bring some foreign speakers as well, and then some remote. What would you think of this kind of combination for next year?
Interested in hearing kind of like people's comments and from the chat, but makes a good suggestion from my side.
I don't really have that much experience, to be honest, in conferences, so I can't really say what would or may work out well. But just thinking of like really the future on like remote versus on site, I could also see some kind of solution in between, that there will actually be just some shared office or workspaces close to you, so that you don't need your employer's facility, and that may work as well in kind of in a conferences context, that there is just a big venue that is distributed across multiple cities, multiple locations, and so on, and that will just like allow you to still control on like having some stuff that also takes place remote, but you have a physical location where people are on site, can meet each other, but it's also then being kind of accessible maybe on a satellite setup, so that people who don't want to travel to, let's say, Helsinki for that week or for some days, they could meet up in Stockholm, just because there is multiple people who may be interested, and then mingle with like-minded people. And like in this work way, I think it could be really interested to have some location close to where every one of us is living, and to just have a couple of people getting to work there, having a shared coffee machine, and everyone is simply working for a different company. And when you have your coffee chat, you get to know completely different perspectives, and you don't have this forced kind of change of topics to something that, oh, you have like some project going on, everyone works on that anyhow, like on the daily basis, but you're kind of forced a little bit to like talk about what you're doing in a different way, so you can also make sure that what you are actually working on, if you're allowed to share something, for instance, unless you're really in stealth mode, you could try to kind of make sure that it makes sense from the outside as well. So I think that may be something really valuable for companies, that employees are mingling with other companies' employees as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I know that to some those online venues, like those virtual hub hotel type of things you can have, where you can chat with people and meet them like virtually, are far less intimidating than actual live events. So I would like to see that there are possibilities to people who actually prefer to stay at their own home and join from there. But then there's, like Mika said, there could be satellite events where you get to go to a location nearby to meet people. I know, for example, during Nordic Business Forum, there has been many studios all around Helsinki where companies have purchased the right to show the actual event, and people are gathering to see and chat. So there's also some possibilities to bring people together without sending them all to the same location at the same time.
Yeah, so our initial plan for this fall, we could not do it because of the restrictions. We have some comments, so let's bring them. I think having a good way to access the event online, plus mainly in-person event for the chats and random encounters that were mentioned to happen. Yeah, so likely there is some kind of compromise we can find. Another one idea about hosting meetups during conferences is to have access to international speakers for those from local communities who are not able to attend full conferences. So yeah, I think sort of this discussion and what I've heard from other people, it sort of confirms my view that that conferences, they won't be the same they were before Corona. So I think we have to find new flexible ways to kind of meet different goals. But I think for next year, one of the key points is to find a good way to bring this live event back, or this live aspect back to the event, because it's so integral part of what we're doing. Because if you keep fully online, it's quite difficult to replicate the whole conference experience. Yeah. But I guess we're close to done, so we could move to takeaways. So what would you let's do the takeaways. You know why I did the video? It's a takeaway. It's a takeaway coffee. That was the joke. Yeah, it's just the internet. You write takeaway to internet. It's giving you something like that. But let's go around. So Elisa, maybe you can, if you have something to take away from this session, you could tell us.
Yeah, I think the main thing that I'm taking away, apart from what I said myself, but I really like what Mika said, that you need to know who you are and what you enjoy. Like he said, this brief comment about you can't force yourself into React just to get a React job, but if you are into it, then it doesn't matter how much you know it beforehand if you're just willing to learn. So I think that was, like, to me, the most significant part of his talk. Like, be mindful of what it is that you're into, and then be willing to work for that, and then don't be afraid to go after it, even if you're not perfect at this moment. So to me, that was probably the most important takeaway from this whole session.
And Mika?
Well, I guess what we have been talking about, it just shows again that we are in quite a nice position, like in the IT industry, that we even have the chance to talk about this kind of ways of working and about the options of making a call if you're remote or if you're on site. I hope that actually that what we are talking about will eventually spread across other industries as well. And as I believe Elisa mentioned earlier, that with the English language, for instance, we are in the position that for us it's already part of the culture, but elsewhere in other kind of domains or other industries, we're not there yet. So we are partially already in the future, and it's kind of we're really in a great position that we can kind of already pick the fruits of being and doing what we're doing, and being able to make kind of that call. I don't like React, I'm going a different path. So it's we have to call ourselves lucky in that sense.
Yeah, and Saku.
My main takeaway is Juho's kind of like calm approach to me being absolutely nerve-wracked about an hour ago. To me being absolutely nerve-wracked about an hour ago or so, because after my presentation, I had about 15 minutes before because I didn't have any connection after the presentation. I wasn't sure if you had heard a single word of my presentation, and I was just going mad and sending messages to Juho and everything, and he was just like, these things always happen. I'm like, thank you. So just I pay my homage to the man.
Yeah, thank you. So I mean, I can tell you a little secret, that it's like in every single session we have at least one issue. So there's always some problem, and it happens, it's always a different problem. So yeah, there have been worse things, but it's sort of the part of the game. When you do online events, something will always go wrong. But I mean, I think the worst thing that happened is that once we lost the producer lost their internet connection for 15 minutes. Yes, that's likely the worst thing that can happen, is you lose the entire stream for some time, and that's sort of game over for that. That's like, you cannot do anything. Let's just wait for the internet to come back. And the funny thing is, in that case, the producer, they even had a secondary connection. So the primary connection went down and secondary connection went down. So that's sort of that's why you have the secondary connection in place, that you can sort of work against this scenario. But things happen. But yeah, thanks all. It was great to have you here, and also a great way to end the conference. So thanks. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.
So thanks. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.